ice and snow sound good on paper and look good in TV Christmas specials, but in reality they're cold and wet and unpleasant and a magnet for bloodthirsty Krampuses. It's even worse in video games where icy snow levels crop up all the time, subjecting you, the player, to slidey controls, slow movement, limited visibility, and worst of all, compulsory snowboarding. But don't take our word for it. Get a load of these ice levels that can slide all the way into the bin. Enjoy, and beware some minor spoilers for the following games.
Stay where I can see you, Batman!
Each member of Batman's Rogues Gallery has something that makes them unique. The Joker has a twisted sense of humour, Poison Ivy can control plants, and the Riddler tells you what crimes he's going to do before he does them, thus making him much easier to catch.
What?
Crime Boss the Penguin's whole thing is that he's like a penguin, and as such very into stuff penguins like, such as ice and murder.
No!
I'm telling you, given the chance, a penguin would do that to you and your whole family. In Arkham City, the Penguin has taken over the Cyrus Pinckney Institute for Natural History and turned it into his base of operations, converting the former museum's main hall into a huge frozen lake.
The ice looks unstable. I need to move slowly, take my time.
Everything about this makeshift Iceberg Lounge is the worst, from having to walk around slowly on the ice so you don't break it, to the fact that you have to get around by laboriously pulling a raft around the place.
It's so cold. Where did Penguin get that gun?
To, oh yeah, the shark. Did I not mention the shark? Honestly, put that thing in a top hat, give him a few henchmen and call him something like Sharkman Jones, and he is easily in the top 5 deadliest Batman villains of all time. And yeah, I know who King Shark is. It's different. It's a joke I'm making. So stay out of the comments, King Shark fans.
In the real world, when it snows, you get to drink hot cocoa and make snow angels and flake on your social commitments because, you know, the roads or trains or whatever. It's great. Not so for Donkey Kong, who, when faced with abundant snow and ice in Donkey Kong Country, must press on with no respite from the 3 worst things about ice. It's slippery, it's cold, and it's hard. All of which can equally be said for Donkey Kong Country's Gorilla Glacier, the icy desolation that lies at the highest point of Donkey Kong Island. And if Donkey Kong were a smarter primate, he'd steer well clear. But here we are, folks, loping into a series of stages where the DK-specific platforming muscle memory you've earned up until now goes right out the window. Here, the ice-covered platforms and slopes are super slippery, leaving Donkey Kong with all the grace and maneuverability you would expect of a gigantic gorilla on a frozen surface. Just as well, the game doesn't demand precisely timed and placed leaps to keep you from dying. Oh wait, it does. I always said the day I returned voluntarily to this level would be the day hell freezes over, but now that I think about it, it's not clear that Gorilla Glacier wasn't built upon the frozen ruins of hell, with its diabolical skiddy platforms and frequent visibility tanking snowstorms. Occasionally, for a special treat, snow will fall in the background and foreground at the same time, obscuring you, the environment, your enemies, and anything else you might have liked to see going on. It's a bit like when it rains in that infamous GTA San Andreas remake, but colder and worse.
Oh, that's a lot.
Distracting. That is
That's a lot of rain.
Okay, colder, anyway. The slippy, slidey, snowbound parts of the region give Gorilla Glacier the dubious honour of being among the earliest, most notorious ice levels in gaming history, kicking off a long and terrible tradition of making our lives worse with snow and ice. And again, poor DK with not so much as a mug of cocoa to take the edge off. Still, at least he has a good excuse for flaking on his social commitments.
Popular in video games, the Nurburgring Nordschleife in Germany is generally considered to be the most challenging race circuit in the world. But to be fair, that's only because Rainbow Road isn't real. The only thing more colourful is my language. Fucking bullshit. The point is, with its 140 plus corners, dramatic elevation changes and blind high-speed sections, the Nordschleife is plenty challenging even in absolutely perfect conditions. You have to wonder then what sort of sadists would set a challenge on that particular circuit in the dead of winter when the entire thing is covered in snow and ice. The answer is the developers of 2007 Xbox 360 game Project Gotham Racing 4 Bizarre Creations. They're closed now, presumably because of this crime against humanity. The Mission Classic Snow Chaos doesn't just challenge you to make it around the circuit in the worst imaginable conditions, but it makes you do it in a nearly 70-year-old Maserati 250F Grand Prix car, from an era when engines were powerful and brakes absolutely were not. The result is a driving experience that's slipperier than a politician in a TV interview, with you desperately wrestling this piece of 1950s automotive technology around a treacherous circuit in the sort of conditions that would make a polar bear think twice about popping outside. You know what? Bring back Rainbow Road. At least it would mean the sun was coming out.
The setting for From Software's sprawling RPG, Elden Ring, is called The Lands Between because George R.R. Martin owns a copy of The Lord of the Rings and a thesaurus. This not Middle-earth is made up of a bunch of diverse biomes, including the expansive lakes of Liurnia and the hellish everything of Caelid. But if you ask us, the absolute worst place in all of Elden Ring is Ordina Liturgical Town, the closest thing the game has to a snow level. To even get to Ordina, you first have to navigate the Consecrated Snowfield, which is a snowy maze with a visibility of about 4 feet. Seriously, Silent Hill monsters would look at this and comment on the poor visibility. Eventually, after hours of galloping around a mostly white screen, fondly remembering when you were allowed to see things in Elden Ring, you might stumble across Ordina Liturgical Town, which, on the face of it, seems like a pretty regular town, albeit one covered in snow. However, Ordina contains an Everjail which transports you to another version of the town, wherein lies a puzzle for you to solve to access the secret area, Miquella's Haligtree. The puzzle involves finding 3 unlit torches and lighting them, which sounds simple because I didn't mention the other part, which is that the town is also full of invisible assassins who will kill you instantly by stabbing you in your unsuspecting neck. These Black Knife assassins are totally invisible, come out of nowhere without any warning, and will easily drop you in a single hit if you haven't maxed out your vitality, and they make any attempt to navigate Ordina a brutal, stressful gauntlet of constant sudden deaths and grumpy, sweary restarts. Anyone hoping for a way around this, you can get a special torch, which, when equipped, will reveal these assassins. But all that means really is that you get to see exactly who it is stabbing you in the neck. Great, glad I bothered. Man, remember when we were lost in that snowfield? That was good times. Well, not good per se, more like bad. Bad times is what I was going for.
The common bottlenose dolphin is a marine mammal that lives in temperate, tropical and subtropical oceans, which is many oceans but not, you will notice, any of the ones covered in ice. This explains how in Sega Mega Drive Classic, Echo the Dolphin, the titular bottlenose is so desperately out of his depth in the frozen nightmare that is the Arctic Ocean of the ice zone. Recall for just a second that this game begins with Echo vibing in the warm waters of a coral reef, feasting on the plentiful Nemos and receiving life advice from his podmates. Buddy, I'm way ahead of you. Then, when a terrifying sky vortex sucks up all his friends and food, Echo must begin a lonely voyage across planet Earth's vast oceans to solve the mystery. So it is all downhill from there for our cetacean cover star. He's not smiling on the inside, believe me. The ice zone is a particular low point for both Echo the Dolphin and you, the player, about 1/3 of the way through the game, when the music turns all creepy and mournful and you're dumped into a sub-zero soup of angry Arctic sharks, slippery sea ice, and much, much worse, extremely hostile Arctic spiders. No, don't like that. Technically, these are crabs, but the game calls them spiders and they look like spiders, and so for all intents and purposes, this is a kind of gigantic, highly aggressive underwater spider, and whoa! I've just developed a new, highly specific phobia. Cool. Echo is not the most combat-effective creature at the best of times, so you better get used to the sound effect of him taking crab damage. As if the ice zone weren't horror enough, it's followed by 2 further Arctic set levels named Hard Water and Cold Water, which feature surface ice that leaves you with fewer and fewer holes through which to stick your snout to breathe the air that dolphins need to live, as well as ice blocks that zoom around and crush you to death. Oh, and in case you were wondering, yes, there are still plenty of Arctic spiders. And that's why we live on land.
The year was 1997. Global snowboarding popularity was at an all-time high, and the world looked forward to the sport's first appearance at the Winter Olympics the following year in Nagano, Japan. Perhaps that was the rationale behind adding a snowboarding minigame to Final Fantasy VII, with the aim of seizing the zeitgeist by having Cloud shred the Gnar down a mountain, partway through this otherwise winter sports-free role-playing game. And truly, it might have paid off if this 5-minute portion of gameplay wasn't the most annoying emulation of snowboarding ever to grace a games console. The snowboarding minigame awaits players at the top of Icicle Inn, a snowy resort town from which Cloud and the gang, being pursued by the evil Shinra, must make a quick escape. Therefore, Cloud steals a kid's snowboard to ride down the mountain, with nary a backwards glance or opportunity to first put on something with sleeves. I am cold just looking at you, Cloud. So begins a minigame as difficult to control as it is totally unavoidable. Rumour has it there exist controls in this minigame that let you steer, jump, brake and even edge the board for faster turns, but those rumours remain unproven, because in reality it is nigh on impossible to avoid the sides of this slippery slope. The upshot is, what the makers of Final Fantasy VII presumably hoped would be a fun few minutes of carving powder as Cloud, the Winter Olympics hopeful, turned out to be an ego-puncturing ordeal where you kept donking off obstacles like a total chump. In a divergence from the official rules of the Winter Olympics event, the slope is also covered in balloons, perhaps to try and cheer you up. Your reward for completing the minigame is unlocking 3 more snowboarding courses at the Gold Saucer amusement park, in case you want Cloud to make that career switch from mercenary super soldier to extreme sportsman. Guess what? You don't.
Miss Gaskell, get that fire lit quick. Miss Jones, bring in whatever blankets we have. Mr. Pearson, see what we've got in terms of food.
Davy's dead.
Now don't get me wrong, Red Dead Redemption 2 is a fantastic game full of great characters, story and set pieces, but dear God does it have a rough start. That's because it kicks off proceedings with the Colter chapter, in which the Van der Linde gang are holed up in the frozen north of the map, hiding out after the botched ferryboat robbery that made them persona non grata in the more hospitable areas of New Austin.
What really went down back there on that boat? We missed you. That's what happened. Come on.
That means a solid hour of the most expensive, lavishly detailed ice level in video game history, and while it is very impressive from a technical standpoint, it's also an ice level, and as such, sucks. Everything about this section of the game is utterly miserable, from the freezing and starving other gang members.
We have a few cans of food and a rabbit. For what, 10, 12 people?
To the missions, which are mostly you slogging through hip-deep snow at a snail's pace. Or riding a horse through hip-deep snow, unable to see anything that's happening because there's snow everywhere, and also it's dark.
I'm glad you're all right, Micah. Always.
Man, this would be like if a Grand Theft Auto game started with you chauffeuring your annoying cousin around the most boring part of the city.
Nico, you ever had two women at once?
Oh, right.
The city is like a big udder milk and ice cream shop. 36 flavors of titty.
Those were the 7 worst ice levels that can slide straight into the nearest bin, or trash can, if you prefer.
Jane, I'm cold. I had to look at all that
What?
ice and it made me cold.
You can't see, but Andy is wearing so many thick, cosy layers, including a very cosy-looking jacket.
Can we turn up the heat in here?
And now it's my problem. Anyway, if you would like to watch another video from Outside Xbox, why not this one, which is about the 7 worst guns we wouldn't shoot our worst enemy with, or this video from our sister channel Outside Extra, which is about 7 boss fights that you literally were not allowed to lose by the game.
Am I allowed to have some heat?
Yes, fine. All right.
Thank you.